Thank you, Chris. Thanks everybody tuning in. Tactical Tuesday. We're going to let everybody roll in as we've just turned this on. First, I want to just wish Jack a happy birthday. If you can see behind him there is his big day. Any words of wisdom, Jack?
My family snuck into my office before I came in this morning and decorated the office, including the backdrop. So we lost a bee over here somewhere in the shuffle, but there's streamers and a bunch of other balloons. It's fun.
That happens as you get older, Jack. You lose things here and there.
Yes, it's true. I've noticed. I've noticed.
Well, as everybody knows, and thank you for tuning in, Tactical Tuesday, in light of COVID-19 and the challenges, we at T3 Sixty wanted to go out to the market and work with brokers, our clients and others in the marketplace to create strategies and talk about how to best survive and thrive, frankly, in this challenging market. And Tactical Tuesdays came about through that discussion. This is something we've done now. I think this is probably the 7th week now for Tactical Tuesday. So it's been quite a bit. We've done this. We've done everything from staffing to looking at your expenses and you name it, front, back, everything. We actually looked at MLS and how your MLS and your associations can help support you. So this past week, Jack had an interesting experience. And as you know, Jack is the president of T3 Sixty. Him and Stefan on Fridays do a really great thing called a fireside chat that's really proved to be phenomenal, having some top C-level executives in the industry on their call. So we're actually really pleased to have with us this time because Jack actually last week got on a call with Craig McClelland. He's the vice president and COO of Better Homes and Garden MetroBrokers down in Atlanta and does a phenomenal job, just a top leader. I don't know if you know this, Craig, but you and I were supposed to be on an Inman panel together back in January. And I guess something happened. You ended up not being on that panel for some reason. They moved somebody else on there. That would have been nice to have been on that panel with you. But it's good to see you. And Craig's doing some incredible things. So I'm going to bring Jack on. Jack's going to give you some insight into his experience in working with Craig. And then Craig's going to share some of the dynamic things he's doing as a leader to help support him, help support his company and his agents. So go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so Craig, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming and sharing with our audience. You had invited me a couple of weeks back to come and be on you've been doing a daily webinar, web call with your entire company. And you made a commitment around that. And I know you're going to talk about that commitment as part of some of the things that you've learned. So anyway, I attended that last Monday and was just blown away. You had 650 of your agents turn up. And then you had some pretty incredible numbers from people showing up for that call. I think you had, even this past Mother's Day, you said you had hundreds of people. How many people showed up for Mother's Day?
So it's, and I'll talk about it as we go through the slides, but it's a 45-day challenge. I'm on day 43 this morning. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, I decided to get on with the agents and staff, and whoever wants to get on, gets on. And when you were on with us, we had 660 people on, something like that, for 30 minutes. And then on Mother's Day, I had 420, which I was kind of blown away that we could get 420. But we do it every single day, Monday through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I mean, everything, because real estate happens every single day. So I just figured I'd do it every day.
Yeah, so I was super impressed. I thought the call was very powerful. Had a lot of information and knowledge that you shared with your agents. And so we're hoping to hear a little bit about your experience of kind of moving into this COVID and lockdown, shutdown, whatever we want to call it, and some of the things that you've learned and done. And so thank you again for coming here and offering to share that with our group. I think there's a lot to be learned here. So with that, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your approach and kind of what you decided to do at MetroBrokers.
Yeah, so I'll thank you for the intro, and I'll start out with, just to give a little bit of perspective, is I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, first off. So I have 28 offices, 2,500 agents, 170 staff members. And so we went into this experience of lockdowns and everything kind of started in April. So if you want to move to the first slide, I'll talk a little bit about kind of what it looked like going into it. You can go on to the next one, and it'll show a little bit about what we were doing. So as we went into this happening, we were, on average, we close, just to give you a little bit more scope of that, about 8,000 transactions, whole loan mortgage, title, and insurance, and we whole loan an academy, which is important as we get through this. So we enroll about 3,000 people in the academy annually. So with all the communications coming out, we had to find a way to get those communications out to all of our agents and staff members, because we had conflicting messages. And I'm sure everybody's dealt with that in their states. We had, cities and counties and towns and even venues that had these different guidelines they were putting out. And a lot of them were conflicting guidelines. It was kind of like the idea of, Fulton County had an order in place, but then Atlanta, that is a city inside Fulton County, had another order in place. So which one prevailed? So we had to get those messages out. So we were leveraging emails, videos, and in-person meetings. And we got to a point at the end of March when Governor Kemp said, hey, look, it's going to be a state order, and it's going to be one law, one land. And he started clarifying some of that. So we were able to shoot a video, which you see in the bottom corner. That's me. And I had a video announcement that I put out to all of the agents outlining guidelines as to, hey, this is what we're doing as an organization. We've got this, we can cover this. These are the things that we're going to reposition. This is how we're going to handle staff. These are the things you need to know about the orders. And actually at the end of that video, I shot that video probably no less than 6 times on a Saturday. And that's me in the corporate office. And I just couldn't get the messaging right, because I've been through things like this before. In 2008, I managed to ran a company through the downturn and all those things. And I just know the feeling of the hopelessness that happens with our staff and our organizations when they don't have the information, they don't have something to grasp to. So I shot this video no less than 6 times, like I said. And at the end of the video, on the 6th time, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to have a Zoom meeting every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you need to get on it, if you want to get on it, just get on it. And if it's 20 people, if it's 100 people, if it's nobody, it's fine. If it's nobody, hey, that's great, because that means everybody's doing well enough they don't need it. If you need a shot in the arm, though, I'll be on for the next 45 days for 30 minutes, and we're going to be human. We're going to share everything about the company. We're going to be transparent about our numbers. We're going to be transparent about what we're adjusting, what we're doing, and just have a conversation and check in like a family should. So that's where it actually all started. But this is, this was us navigating the communication. So if you go to the next slide.
Hey, Craig, I'm curious, how many
about, these are some of the venues we leverage communicating with. So this is, MetroNet is actually a Slack style tool that is actually powered by a company called Converse. And it breaks out different, conversations and different things going on and resources and tools. And this is kind of our hub where our agents go for everything. So you think of it like an intranet. This is our intranet for the company. So you'll see this little breakout, COVID-19 resources. We started compiling all the resources from NAR, resources from the government, PPP, from the CDC, everything that we had, and we wanted to put it in one place. So they had this resource guide they could start with, because that was for our staff and for our agents. We wanted them to say, hey, this is your go-to place. That was the resource that they had to check in. That was our communication tool. Then you see on the other side of the screen, this is actually a glimpse of our website. So we started communicating to the public also. So on our website, we actually create a link that was updates regarding COVID-19. That's right on the front page of the website. You can click on it. It does a deep dive into a splash page that will give you all the information as to what we're doing, how we're meeting the consumers where they are, whether it's with virtual meetings, whether it's facilitating transactions digitally, those things. So as things were changing with closings and evolving, we actually kept all that information front and center for the consumer to access. And then the bottom, you'll actually see there's a couple of flyers and brochures that we created digital versions for the agents to articulate that conversation to the consumer. So, this is kind of a compilation of all the different materials, resources. We had to really pivot quickly and create assets that would meet our staff and agents where they were, would meet the consumer where they are on our website, but also enable our agents to meet that consumer with a clear message. Because a lot of times we think it's a simple message, but you want to put it together in a way that it makes sense so it can be articulated. And I can tell you, we were moving so fast while we were doing this, it was unbelievable, like unbelievable breakneck pace of pivoting open houses to virtual, just like everybody did. Like we had to move to where we could figure out how to get deals done and meet those consumers where they are. because deals were still happening. So if you go to the next slide, this is the Zoom boom that we experienced. And I think that everybody experienced some level of a Zoom boom. And for us, it was pretty significant though, because we run a pre-licensed academy. So we enroll 3,000 people a year into pre-licensed school, and I run 8 physical locations for them to do 75 hours of pre-licensed study in order to qualify to take their state level test to get their real estate license. So I had to move the entire academy for pre-license over to Zoom. So as the state started changing the rules, we were able to pivot onto Zoom. We were able to pivot our post-license education and CE education onto Zoom. So we had to move all of our classrooms onto that virtual environment. We also have accelerator classes we also moved our orientation. Once a month, we do orientation with no less than 70 people in it. It's a company-wide orientation. Move that over to Zoom. So I had to evaluate some products and figure out what was the right product for me, because I was going to put an extensive amount of resources into it, but also run an extensive amount of, communication tools off of it. So whether it was going to be Blue Jeans or whatever else, it ended up for us being Zoom. We moved our recruiting initiatives over to Zoom also. So I have 10 recruiters that are recruiting full-time off of Zoom. We moved all of our coaches onto Zoom. So our meetings went from in-person to coaching through Zoom. Agent tools, we built an entire virtual open house program on Zoom, on the backbone of Zoom. And then our offices, as far as our facilities, we moved our regular meetings, which would be office manager meetings, our group check-ins, our department head meetings to Zoom, and changed our hours. So at this point, like of us going through this, I know I kind of rocketed through a chunk of it, but I want to get to the 45-day challenge to really dive into that deep. And a lot of these are nothing new. You got a lot of intelligent people on this call that are dealing with a lot of these things that have pivoted and leveraged Zoom, went to virtual open houses, those pieces. As far as my corporate staff, I have 130 people that report to a corporate location. We narrowed that down to having 20 people that are reporting. The balance of that, the 110, were working from home for a month. So I think we ended up with a little over a month, I guess it's about 5 weeks. We just started this week having those staff members report back. At the same time, we changed our office hours from 9 to 5:30. We changed it to 1 to 5:30, just to process contracts and really do the payroll component in the office. And those offices are still at the 1 to 5:30 mark as far as hours. So they have the restricted hours still. And probably next week, we're tracking foot traffic in the offices. We'll probably move that next week. We'll move that back to regular hours, but we're still evaluating what we're going to do with our offices. So that kind of sums up all the changes we made in the company. We went through a lot of really quick order changes. We had to stay sharp and stay on our toes with everything going on. And during that, you can go to the final slide, and this is the 45-day challenge. So this is kind of, I don't know if this really sums up what it evolved into, but so it started out with about, I think my first show that we ran, it runs from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 sharp. We only do a 30-minute check-in. It's broken up specifically into 2 sections. The first 15 minutes is all about a numbers review, and I'll talk about some of those numbers that we review. In the second half are interviews. So you can see TG Gallaudet actually in the top one from Zillow. That that screenshot I have is a group of people, and you have TG on it. So we went from about 200 people to begin with checking in. During the week, we were having about 750 on the call during the week is kind of our peak. And on the weekends, we're getting about 550 on the call. And, sometimes you launch something and you see massive engagement and adoption. And to me, it just meant we were meeting them where they were, and it was a necessity, it was needed. So what it became is during the week, Monday through Friday, we have different speakers that come on. So the first 15 minutes is me, and I talk about numbers and check in on the market and check in on what's going on with the orders and all that stuff and give direction. I'm very transparent about the company's numbers. This is a family check-in. This is not a recruiting event. So we really check in on how many numbers did we go binding on yesterday? How many closings did we contract? How many new listings do we have? So we're very transparent on the numbers. And then we dig into a book. So every week we read a book. So now we're on our 6th book, I think it is right now. This is our 6th week of being in it. And we interviewed probably 30 people through the high-level executives. I mean, it was absolutely from Brad Inman to John Payton to Lawrence Yun from NAR. We had all these people on. It was great because I could reach out, and nobody had a solid excuse when we're meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's no meetings going on. So it worked out really, really well. But, you know, it's evolved into this great thing. And so we just completed day 43 this morning. We had 620 people on this morning, roughly, something like that. Maybe it was like 590. I didn't get the actual numbers yet, but it's right at that window. We did a COVID update. I review the showing time numbers every day. So if you've seen the showing time numbers, they've built a great website that shows MLS numbers. And we want to focus on those leading indicators because that's where understanding the market comes from. So we're really dialed in on, hey, showings are a great leading indicator as to what's going to turn into contracts and what's going to turn into closings. We do a full market review. So I do a 7-day look on the market. So every day I'm looking at the MLS and pulling closings under contracts, new listings, as well as we dive into different statuses like the hold status and the coming soon status, which are exploding for us here in Georgia because people are kind of holding their listings in inventory in those statuses. So we're watching, we know that's the pending inventory that will come online. Then we do our MetroBrokers review. Then we review the books. So here's the books. If you like, I think we organized them really well. I read a lot of books. I probably read, and you'll think it's ridiculous, I read about 50 books a year. But I really enjoy consuming knowledge off of books. I think there's a lot to be learned there. But we started off with the first week, we read 212 Degrees because it's a great, simple read, but it's all about courage. It's about having that extra degree of courage. And you know, when you're navigating a sales force, they have to stay courageous. They have to know that one extra degree counts, even though it's a little painful and it's tough to go through. So we did 212 Degrees the first week. The second week we read Who Moved My Cheese, which is about embracing the journey to go find new cheese. And sometimes we're gonna, you know, doing a virtual open house is totally different than a physical open house. You know, the cheese has moved a little bit, but embrace the journey of getting there. Then we read Good to Great, which is a great foundational business book. It's a heavy read, but it's a good foundational book. And I knew I had 700 people on the line that a lot of them weren't reading the book, but it allowed me to talk about fundamental aspects of the book, and they could go apply those. Even if they didn't read the book, that's fine. But I could talk about these, you know, realities of how you need to implement in your business. Then we did the 4 disciplines of execution because we wanted to build a scoreboard and really, really focus on the scoreboard. They read a really good short book. It's called Go for the No. I don't know if you ever read that, but it's about getting past no's because, you know, I really felt that at that stage we're going to be dealing with a lot of no's. No, I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do that. You know, and I had to get them normalized to the reality that no is just part of the path to yes. We just finished up last week Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And the reason why I think that Emotional Intelligence is a brilliant book for right now is because what we're going through is not a financial thing. It's a fear-based, and it is a reality. I'm not taking anything away from it. It is a reality, but people will re-enter into the market different. Each person will re-enter into society different, and there's a lot of emotions involved in that. So, you know, the better our people can understand and meet people where they are and identify that this may be an emotional response versus a financial response, they can help people through those different situations. So Emotional Intelligence was really important for us to read. And this week we're reading The Innovator's Dilemma, which I believe, I don't know if you've read The Innovator's Dilemma, but it is just absolutely a brilliant book.
Yeah, that's a tremendous book. It's so good.
Well, it's such a simple thing too. It outlines the separation of, you know, you have your 2 categories. You have your sustaining innovation and you have your disruptive innovation. And they're both play a role. So I think it's just a cool book, and maybe it's too high level, but.
Well, but I think for the time that we're in, that's a key. We wrote about that in the trends report as part of our, one of our interviews with an high level executive about how he was using it inside of a very large company. And I think that's, you know, understanding we're in a time of disruption, both in real estate and with the market right now, that it's important to understand it and where it fits in, and you have to focus separate resources on it. in order to move through it. And
well, I think that, you know what I think is interesting, Jack, is that in the innovator's dilemma, it talks about disruptive innovation. And, you know, the problem with disruptive innovation is that it's all about the adoption. But we choose to adopt things through crises. So right now we're adopting and learning how to use certain things. And the question is, those that are smart will not only learn to adopt them, but they'll come to the reality that it needs to be part of the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Right. So it won't just be something I do right now and then I put it back down and forget it and go back to the way I was doing it. I'm going to adopt it and I'm going to use it forever. And that's what I think is so exciting about this time. Right?
Yeah, it's really, this period, all the leaders we've talked to on the Fireside Friday, we've talked about, well, what are the things that we're going to get to keep and why? And the perspective we've developed on it is that this time is just accelerate that adoption. We've been pushed into things that were already good. I mean, Zoom's not new. GoToMeeting's not new. These are not new tools. We've had them for years, but we didn't have the reason to drive the adoption. And now we did. And then everybody said, oh, wait, this is actually better. I don't have to drive. It's convenient. I can just, flip on my laptop and be instantly into whatever. I don't have to get on a plane, So it's exactly that. It's accelerated it.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. And, it's what it's done for us because we choose to leverage it correctly is, you can see these bottom two slides is there's a room in Converse that's called Metro Challenge. And every day I would do a recap post of the speaker, of the challenge, of the, the insights we got from the book. And I would challenge the agents to go do something. And you see the comment little flag or, on the side of those posts. And it's like, on 415, we had 104 people comment. On 416 we had 32, on 420 we had 28, on 58 that's 60. So if I was to open those up right now, those are people taking challenges of reaching out to sphere of influence. Those are people like taking challenges of doing these different things that result in business, which results in the success story. So every weekend I could go on for 2 hours with the show. I never did. I would only do a half hour, but the star of the show were the agents. Like I unlocked them and let them speak, and they were just sharing success stories. So it was so, the excitement was great, and we were just human and met them where they are. So, I mean, one of the things we were able to adopt was, I don't think we've ever used this technology, Converse, in a way to collaborate and let our culture breathe. And it's brilliant when that happens. It's just a beautiful thing. So, that's what's been so cool about this is our culture has been breathing. And when they engage and they go to work, like, man, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I think it makes one of the observations we've had with your company and others is the move to online has enabled access to culture when it's been maybe more difficult prior to this, where people didn't want to drive into the office for the sales meeting, or they didn't participate at a high level in what you had going on as a brokerage. And I know your brokerage has, good participation, but broadly across the industry, low participation is the norm. And what online has done is it's lowered that bar, made it easy to participate. And now people are seeing the benefits of that culture and that connectedness to each other and to their other peers, and to also getting inspired either by the leaders or by their peers. So it's been very powerful in lowering that bar where people can get involved, and there isn't that burden of, I have to go somewhere, I have to dress up, I have to look a certain way, all of those things. So.
Well, one of the things that I've taken as a burden is the reality that shame on me if we have this collaboration at this level and we have this opportunity and we don't capitalize on it. And what I don't mean for the short term, because it's easy to do it right now, because crises is driving interaction. Like, you're not going to be able to have a webinar in 6 months and have the participation level you have, because people will be busy with daily life and they'll be selling houses, which is great. Look, I'd rather have everybody selling houses, but so what we've done is I've invested in cameras that are speaker tracking cameras that we're mounting in our classrooms that have 360 mics on them. So we're going to equip our classrooms, because where I want to be on the other side of this is a classroom that has 30 people in the classroom and 30 people online. Like, because if 30 people are on Zoom, that's great. I mean, you got to remember, from my furthest office to my furthest office is 4.5 hours, 5 hours. So everybody's not going to drive into corporate because of traffic or because of different things.
Yeah.
And you can't have training everywhere either. So what we're doing is we're enabling our classrooms to, meet agents' needs. And as long as they're consuming the information, like I'm realizing that it can be done over video, it really can. So I'm growing as a leader also.
That's awesome. Well, what else what else have you noticed about yourself as a leader that's changed in this process? This 45-day commitment, when you made it, I don't think you knew what you were getting into. What have you learned for yourself?
You know what? I've learned to trust myself a little bit more. Sometimes you see things and you're like, this is an emotional response or this is a whatever. And sometimes it doesn't always make a ton of sense. So I'm learning how to trust myself as a leader a lot more. And I'm also, I'm encouraged that, it means a lot to have 700 people sign in just to hear you for 15 minutes. So there's a lot to be said there, but I think we have a great organization. And I think that's very encouraging that see that they're ready to take on the next challenge, and there's going to be other challenges. So I'm excited that two things is that, I believe that we can lead through whatever is thrown at us, but I also believe as an organization, we're strong enough to take on whatever can be thrown at us. And so I'm excited about, it's time for us to start leading instead of duplicating what others are doing. It's time to start going, you know what, we're going to innovate. You know what, we're going to take the helm. We're going to do something that sounds absolutely ridiculous. We're going to go after disruptive innovation, and the sustaining innovation is going to keep the company running, but we're going to be disruptive, and we're going to disrupt ourselves, and we're going to become what we have the full potential to be. And that's an exciting place to be.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. Hey, Craig, and congratulations on just being such a true leader. And fear and helplessness, you used hopelessness, actually the word that you used, in a time when leaders step up. And we had a good friend of ours and a very successful broker, Matt Curtis, talk about leaders run into the fire, not away from the fire. And you're definitely doing that. So congratulations on that. I'm curious, you made a mention of the recruiters. I'm curious, during this time that everyone's been sitting at home and recruiting such a hot topic for brokers, you have 10 recruiters you had mentioned earlier. Are they 10 recruiters and managers? Or are they just recruiters? And are you seeing an uptick or a slowing of recruiting going on during this time?
A huge uptick. So, basically I have a Google sheet that I'm running right now that I have 10 recruiters on, and I don't manage them directly, but I oversee them under a direct report that handles them. But we recruit from the academy. So people who enroll into the academy, as well as people externally. And I told them 4 months ago, we were pivoting because we wanted to start reaching out to people that were 90 days out. And so as we got into this, the academy started to drop because there are a lot of people not signing up for the academy all of a sudden. Yeah. And the increase was we started going after, agents that were at other companies. And we've broken it off into segments now, but the middle of the road companies, there's only two scenarios with a company that is, single office or just a couple of offices. Either they are stepping up to the challenge and leading very well and growing because of it. And I encourage them to do that. I think that's fantastic. Or the opposite. They're completely mute and there's no conversation going on. They don't know what to say. And I think that, you come into the scenario where there's a lot of leaders that are in the position. It's easy to lead when the market is roaring. It's easy to get in front of a group and saying, hey, we're up 10%. It's difficult to get in front of a group and say, hey, we're down by 10%, and this is why, and this is how we're going to fix it. Like, that's a different conversation. So, we see that there's a lot of opportunity with those corporations. So you got to find them. But once you find them, like, it literally is, an agent that just wants to be heard. They want to find a place. We literally have had agents that said, my broker had literally told me I have no idea what to do. Go to MetroBrokers. Like, so I've reached out to the brokers and had conversations with them.
Yeah.
Because we find that funny, but the reality is, like, that concerns me. Like, that's a broker that got in over his head. And I'm like, hey, dude, look, I don't want you to file bankruptcy. I don't want you to give your car back or lose your house. Like, let's talk, because we can acquire you and roll you in and make it a bright future versus, being the victim of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Great point.
That's a real help. That's a real help to them because they did probably get in over their head.
Oh, there's, when I first got in the business, I was 9 months into the business, had a falling out with my broker, and he wanted to coach me up. And I told him what I wanted to do was open my own company and pay him a piece for using his brand and his training that he put together. And I had done franchising before I got into the conversation. He told me I need to pay him 50% of the bottom line. And I told him, you're crazy. Like, because I understood the numbers and the net sheets and everything. And he said, well, too bad. I'll get rich off you in the meantime, because you can't get a broker's license for 3 years. So I went out and figured out I could hire a broker. So 9 months into it, I hired a broker. So if you want to talk about someone who's been in over the head, man, I was like, what on earth have I gotten myself into? As a top producing agent, like my second year in, had like 30 agents, was going to open another branch, and like couldn't figure out what the heck what I got myself into. So I've been there. I know what it's like.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. Craig, I just want to thank you for sharing this today. I think it's a great message for our audience. And we've got a core group of people showing up to these every week, and then a lot of replays. So that message will get shared. I think it's inspiring and practical. You got a lot of practical stuff in here. Dean, any comments from you?
Very much so. Yeah, Craig, thank you so much for opening up and sharing what you've been doing. And as I mentioned earlier, just being a real leader in the industry. So it's great to see the things that you're doing, and thanks for sharing it.
Absolutely. Always happy to share. I'm excited where we're going to be on the other end of this. So
there's a lot of opportunity. We've been telling brokers for years in our programs that the best thing that could happen is a recession for many of them, because it creates a massive opportunity for people that are growth minded. And it's here now. Yeah. And those that have been preparing for it already and are stepping up are going to capitalize on it. So with that, I just want to remind everybody, next week, we've got Recruiting in a Changing Market with Kelly White. She's going to come on and lead a session on recruiting practices for right now. Register at prepare.t360.com. Everybody here knows the drill. You know how to do it. If you've already registered, great. You can send us any questions you have ahead of time. And as a reminder, if you do need any additional help, we are continuing the month of May to offer free consulting to brokerage and team leaders, anybody that's in a leadership role that needs some help thinking about their organization, where they're going to go, capitalizing on opportunities. Fully half our conversations now are about opportunities and about how to get there. We're doing a half-hour coaching session anytime you need it. T360.com/ask. You can sign up for a session. Happy to talk to you and help you in this time. This is one of our ways of contributing back. So again, Craig, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. I love being on your 8 a.m. and I know you've got 2 more days left, so I know you're going to finish them strong. And, great job. And I love the books that you guys are reading. It's a lot to take on, and you've taken it all on in style. So keep it up, and hopefully we'll see each other at a live event sometime here in the future. I know we probably would have seen you at T3 Summit last week, but that's the nature of the beast, and I'm sure we will.
Hey, Jack?
Yeah.
I just want to jump in. You mentioned the books, and we had a couple of people asking if they could get a list of those books, and I just wanted to mention we will be posting a handout from this call tomorrow at the prepare.t360.com website. So, and we will include a list of those books and kind of what Craig felt like each of them offered, as it applied to what.
Yeah, you do a great job summarizing our speaker, Shannon. So thank you very much for doing that. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Shannon. Craig, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.